Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Get ready for a shit fest, folks, because we're in for a heaping pile. The movie starts off with a recap of the first film. I will say it's pretty badass that John Larroquette is back to lend his amazing voice to the opening dialogue.
In the summer of 1973, a few miles outside of Austin, Texas, 5 youths were attacked in a grisly and gruesome fashion.
Iconic. So, this movie can't be all that bad, right?
Hey, leatherfuck!
I spoke too soon, I guess. After the recap, we meet chick number 1, one of our main characters. Her and her friends have stopped at a gas station, and she's getting some souvenirs. When she notices a picture of Sally Enright on an old newspaper clipping on the wall. So apparently Sally became a sheriff and has been hunting the chainsaw killers for decades. Wait a minute here. Where have I seen this same plot before?
Cowboy chases chainsaws 14 years.
Oh well, who cares? And then, we meet the rest of our meaningless cast. Oh, you guys. Then some rando comes pulling up in a truck to get some gas when one of the Gen Z chicks gives her opinion on guys with big guns.
Sorry, big gun makes you uncomfortable.
I've seen bigger.
Oh, you really burnt them with that one. So already this movie just doesn't feel like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film at all. You immediately know you're in for some shit. The GPS, the cell phones, the social media. The movie is barely 5 minutes in, and they're just cramming a ton of shit down your fucking throat from the jump. Like, chill, movie. The best part about the original films was that it felt like the characters were isolated from the outside world. But here it just feels like if the cast was being chased by Leatherface, they could easily just use their cell phone to call the police or maybe even try to take a selfie with them. This sort of story just doesn't really work very well placed in a modern day setting. Oh, but I will give the movie this. At least these people actually look like they're college students and not some middle-aged people trying to play younger people.
No sweat.
You know, like in some movies that we know.
That one's on me, Hanson.
They're on their way to Harlow, Texas to buy a town, and they want to start their own settlement there.
Think about it. We can own all of this. Call it Danto.
And on the way, they get pulled over by a sheriff that tells them to behave.
So please, be respectful for the town.
Thank you.
Okay. So these stupid social media warriors arrive to their soon-to-be town, and they're already visualizing on how it's gonna be.
Look, we could put a comic book store in here or something.
Comic book store. Turns out that the building used to be an old orphanage, and our stupid idiots go wandering inside. So, upon my first viewing, because this is literally my second time watching this crap show here, I only watched it once before, and the first time I did not notice that Leatherface is literally sitting in a chair right here. And then he's gone. Okay, that's a little creepy. The orphanage seems abandoned until that creepy old bitch from Jeepers Creepers shows up.
Let's wait for the contract.
What are you doing in our house?
Then she makes a Leatherface pun?
Wish I'd known you all coming. I'd put my face on.
Oh, don't worry. Somebody's definitely gonna put your face on later. So after an awkward conversation, Granny tells him that this is her house and she ain't going nowhere.
Sorry, but
I've got a title that says otherwise.
But they're trying to buy the town, so Granny has to get the fuck out. Then, at the top of the stairs, we see old Leatherface. And he's just checking in to make sure everything's kosher.
I'm all right. Just go back to your room.
And this is where we find out just why Granny can't leave.
He's the last of my boys. He needs special care. He doesn't do well outside, you understand? That is why I can't ever leave him.
The local sheriff's department then comes in to vacate old woman Rivers off the premises.
Oh my God!
The old fart, having a heart attack, gets loaded up into the sheriff's van. And as they're driving away, we get a shot of unmasked Leatherface looking really pissed the fuck off about what just went down. Oh, you guys are fucked now. The bus filled with the new potential population pulls up, and this is where girl number 1 expresses her feelings about the place.
I don't want to live here. Your whole idea is insane.
I know I've already said this, but still doesn't feel like Texas Chainsaw. Just saying. So on the way to the hospital, old Granny here dies, but in her last dying breath, she tells Leatherface to stay out of her room?
Stay out of my room.
What the fuck? Of all the things you could have said before you die, that's what you go with? Alright. And you guessed it, Leatherface is really pissed now. Okay, now that was pretty fucking bad the fuck ass. 3 points to the movie so far.
I mean, anyone who blasts diesel into the atmosphere like that truly gives zero fucks about, like, anything.
Just more unnecessary shit to further and further disconnect this film from anything remotely close to resembling a Texas Chainsaw Massacre flick. We want to see a goddamn chainsaw massacre, not some people sitting around talking about the ozone layer. Come on now, movie, fuck! Then, chick number 2 gets a text. Yeah, a text message in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Yeah. Still doesn't feel like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie to me. Anyways, the text says that Jeepers Creepers lady has died. So now, chick number 2 decides she's over this shithole movie and figures it's time to bounce. We cut back to the crash where old Leather is putting on his new face. One of the sheriff guys somehow survived a gunshot wound to the neck and a head-on collision. Leatherface comes in to finish the job.
Finish him! Fatality. Leatherface wins.
Chick number 3 peeks her head out of the window to see if he's gone when this happens. So hold on a minute. They essentially kill his mother, then he goes on a murderous rampage. Where in the HE double hockey sticks have I seen this before?
Legend has it that Jason saw his mother beheaded that night, and he took his revenge. A revenge that he'll continue to seek if anyone ever enters his wilderness again.
Oh, that's right! The better movie, Friday the 13th. Basically the same plot. I knew this seemed familiar. Oh, come on, movie. Now Leatherface is basically Jason? Can't you do anything original? Give me a fucking break. Sheesh. We then cut to a barn where we see the one and only Sally Enright. Yeah, you know the sole survivor of the first film? Wait a minute. Hold up. Didn't the actress who portrayed Sally in the original film pass away? Rest in peace to the late, great Marilyn Burns. You truly made the film, and your role as Sally will forever be iconic. And who in the shit is this lady? That would be like if Jamie Lee Curtis passed away or passed on the role for Halloween 2018, and they got Suzanne Snyder or some random person to fill in for the role of Laurie. It just wouldn't work. There's just certain things you don't do. You're fucking up, movie. But hey, Sally's back, and she hears that Leatherface is also back. Because the plot says so? Oh, that's not even you, goddammit! Scooby and the gang figure out that they really had no right to evict Jeepers Creepers lady. Then Jason Voorhees, Leatherface, shows up to catch a glimpse of his new face when guy number 1 gets in the way of his glorious reflection. And he's not having that shit. During Leatherface's makeup tutorial, he hears a ruckus going on outside. He sees a bunch of people in his town, and he's definitely not about that shit. It begins to storm, forcing all the new townsfolk onto the bus, pretty much solely to set up one of the best scenes the film has to offer. We cut to Leatherface just tromping around upstairs in the room where he's doing a bit of remodeling. And dumbass chick number 2 is hiding under the bed of all places. You're just a smart little cookie, aren't you? Guy number 1 here somehow survives a meat cleaver wound to the face and losing 100% of his blood to somehow stagger out into the road and die outside in the storm, I guess? That's when Gun Guy from earlier realized that something here just ain't right. Then Jason / Leatherface finally goes into his inventory and equips his chainsaw. Gun Guy and Leatherface get into a scuffle, and Leatherface gives a whole new meaning to the phrase break a leg. And then he gets stabbed in the jugular. Yeah, it's definitely not how Gun Guy saw this going down at all. Then we get this pretty badass, very brutal, Negan-esque head bashing with a hammer scene.
Taking it like a champ!
We cut back to Sally and she stumbles upon the crash site.
I fear no evil. I fear no evil.
Chick number 2 grabs the keys off a dead Gun Guy and crawls out from underneath the bed. She then runs right into Bubba, and it's time for him to start practicing his hammer throwing skills. Now chick number 2 is being chased underneath the floorboards, and the saw is coming right at her. But she's pretty well equipped with some pretty thick plot armor, so she doesn't get chopped to pieces. Instead, old Leather hits a sewage line. She then gets covered in shit. Yeah, that's exactly how this movie makes me feel. Like I'm being covered in fucking shit.
That is one big pile of shit.
Then, these stupid fucks run right into the bus that is filled, I'm talking filled with people, mind you, leading Leatherface right to him. Way to go, you jackasses. Dumbass! But I will say, it does make for the best scene in the entire film. But right before the best scene, we get this extremely cringy scene here that is really going to date the fuck out of this movie in 20 years.
What do you do? Try anything and you're canceled, bro.
Ugh, oh god. Yeah, that's hard to watch. Ugh. More cell phones, the canceled thing.
Try anything and you're canceled, bro.
Oof. After the worst scene, and possibly the worst dialogue in the entire film, which is being very generous here, we finally get one of the best scenes in the entire film for sure. The motherfucking Chainsaw Massacre. Even seeing an actual Chainsaw Massacre, which mind you, hasn't actually been done in the franchise ever up until this point, even that isn't enough to save this fucking shit show. Just keep on jamming the crap down the shitter movie. I will give it this though, if I'm gonna give it anything at all. The Chainsaw Massacre is an extremely badass scene. Just a shame that the rest of the movie wasn't as good as that one scene. Because of plot armor, chicks 1 and 2 escape the bus of death. Of course they fucking do. When Sally shows up in the Nikola test to lay down the law, Sally and Bubba are finally face to face after 50 years. And old Leatherface just doesn't remember her, and then he just fucks off. The whole character of Sally just seems super tacked on in the last act of the film. Like, they didn't know where to go with the movie at this point, so they just jammed her in there at the end. Pretty much just to get killed off. Another way to just further shit on this franchise, I guess. And then he just throws her in the trash. Yeah, that sums up this fuckfest. Pure garbage. Then we get one of the first. Yeah, I said first because there's not only one, but there's 2 scenes that are clearly, obviously, Terminator 2 ripoffs. I mean, if you can believe that shit.
You have to run. I can't. I don't have anyone else. I can't leave you. Yes, you can. Run. Run!
Go, run.
No, we gotta stick together.
John, you got to go now.
John!
Go, now!
Now they're ripping off Terminator? For fuck's sake. This movie just doesn't know what it wants to be. We then get this idiotic scene here.
Hey, leatherfuck!
Chick number one's plot armor kicks in, and Sally comes back from the fucking dead to get in one final blow. So you're telling me she survived this? Yeah, this movie is laughably bad. She's literally dying in the trash. Like, is this a metaphor for the movie? Somehow, 80-pound chick number one fends off Leatherface and is crawling for the shotgun when Leather recoups and just casually walks over there and just nonchalantly kicks the gun away.
All around me are familiar faces.
Right as Leatherface is really about to stick it to her, the wonderfully perfectly timed plot armor kicks in yet again. Then we get the second Terminator 2 ripoff scene here. I was totally expecting to see Leatherface's hand coming out of the water with the thumbs up sign. Now that could have saved the film. So because of the plot armor that Chicks 1 and 2 have been equipped with throughout the entirety of the film, they just barely escape. Well, one of them escapes. And after that extremely predictable end of the movie death, it's finally the end of this shit show. Thank fuck. So, do I recommend this movie? No, not at all. The entire film feels the furthest away from anything that I would ever associate with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The only thing in the movie that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre-y is the fact that Leatherface is in it. Except for this movie just feels like they're trying to rip off so many other movies and not focusing on being a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. The characters are not interesting. They're not fun to watch. They don't have good arcs. The deaths and all the murders are really too predictable. There was too much like social media and like all this crazy like just shit they were trying to cram down your throat the entire time you're watching the movie. It's like, I'm just trying to watch a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, you know? I'm just trying to watch a horror film. It was just not very good. Like I said, it just didn't feel like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. It felt more like a Friday the 13th movie in a way, to where he was like getting revenge on his dead mother, and like, you know, it felt like a Friday the 13th mixed with Terminator at the end there, you know, and then they threw in Sally's character at the end that kind of like tie it up, and then they just threw her in the trash too. So the movie's just a big steaming pile of garbage, and I just don't recommend it. You're better off just watching the original ones. The remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, the one with Jessica Biel, the beginning, and all those movies, you know, they were all really fucking good, and they felt like Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. You know, they felt like the people were isolated, no help for them in sight. Like, it almost, like, the movies felt hopeless. They were gritty, and all that, the gritty tone and all that shit is totally lost here, you know, and it didn't feel like a proper Texas Chainsaw Massacre experience. So, I definitely don't recommend this movie, and you're not missing anything, folks, really, not seeing this. Scott86, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, who gives a fuck? I'll see you guys on the next episode of Monster Mash.
Try anything you cancel, bro.
Try anything you cancel, bro.
We could have been all